Today we'll talk about an introduction to design thinking. Okay, design thinking is a very vast subject. It is a very deep subject as well, and it will not be possible for us to cover all aspects of the concept in today's session. But what I hope to do is I hope to give you an introduction so that you're inspired to learn more about it and you're inspired to think in that particular way of design thinking. Okay. As always, it's important to start with the why. Okay. So why do we need design thinking? So typically, if you see, we do things repeatedly, and when we do the same things in a repeated manner, we develop patterns in our thinking. Okay. And suddenly, when we are faced in a different situation, suddenly when we are placed outside of our comfort zone, we struggle to think. We don't find it easy to come up with solutions. Okay. And in these situations, it is necessary to think out of the box. So you might have come across this term out of the box thinking. So why do they call it like this? So typically our approach will be constrained to a certain set of rules and something that we have, some points that have been ingrained in our minds. Okay, so that is what we call it as the box, and our thinking doesn't normally venture outside of that box. But when you are faced with a different type of a problem which you haven't faced up until that time, or when something demands a lot more ingenuity, that is where we say we have to think outside of the box, as in think outside of our predefined parameters or predefined constraints of thinking. And this is where this concept of design thinking helps. Okay. So what is design thinking? So it is an iterative process to find alternative solutions to problems. Okay. And how do we do it? So first step is that we understand the user, and then we challenge the assumptions, and then we redefine problems. Okay. So understanding user, that is kind of self-explanatory. What do we mean by challenging assumptions? See, the very purpose of design thinking is to think in a different way compared to what we are regularly thinking, right? So when our regular thinking has certain underlying assumptions, and unless and otherwise you challenge those assumptions, unless and otherwise you think of changing those assumptions, you won't be able to think out of the box. So that is where we say challenge assumptions and then redefine problems. Okay. So redefine problems is nothing but looking at the problem from a different point of view. So when you do that, a different solution might be evident to you. So that is where we say redefine problems. So design thinking is a solution-based approach, or you can also call it as an objective approach, where the objective is the solution that you are trying to develop. Okay. So first, what we need to do is we need to understand for whom we are designing the solutions, and we need to develop empathy with the end user of the solution. So empathy is nothing but we put ourselves into their shoes and try to look at the solution or the problem from their point of view. Okay, so if I were the customer, how would I look at this problem? If I were the customer, what sort of a solution would I need? If I were the customer, then how will this solution help me in my day-to-day work? So that is how we need to think. So that's what we say as developing empathy with the end user of the solution. Any questions here on the slide?
No, so far, Sai, all good. Yeah.
Okay. So just to give you a very simple example of the design thinking, I'm not sure whether you have come across this anecdote. Long back, what happened was in the US there was this truck which had a high trailer fitted onto it at the back. Okay, and it was trying to go under this bridge, and the height of the bridge was 12 feet. But the height of the truck with the trailer attached was a little higher than that. But what the driver thought was, okay, I'll take my chances, so I will drive my truck under this bridge. Let's see what happens. Okay, and unfortunately, what happened was the truck got stuck under the bridge. Okay, so what they did was they called the police department, fire department, rescue personnel, and everybody. They called engineers, and they called so many people from so many different walks of life, and they were just trying to solve this problem of how to get the truck or how to remove the truck from under that bridge. And the different types of solutions were proposed. Can we somehow remove some of the equipment, or maybe you can use a blowtorch and remove that top portion of the trailer. Can you come up with something or any solution which can possibly reduce the height of that truck? Okay, but they were brainstorming on this for a very long time, but ultimately they were not able to find a good solution. Then finally what happened was, there was a little boy walking beside that area, and he gave a very, very simple solution. He said, hey, why don't you just let the air outside of the truck tires and see if that reduces the height? And this is what they did ultimately. So they let all the air out of the tires, and then so basically when you let the air out, the elevation comes down, right? So the level of the trailer got reduced a bit, and then the truck was able to pass through that bridge. So you see, typically when you are faced with this kind of a problem, we tend to think in terms of an engineering solution. Hey, can we remove something? Can we alter the parts, alter the assembly, and so on? But the solution that was finally taken up was something very, very different, and which was very, very simple either. Okay, and normally we also, when we are faced with a particular problem, we also don't tend to think in terms of what is the simplest way to solve it. So we also, we typically tend to think, we typically tend to come up with advanced solutions to that problem. But if you see here in this case, they came up with a very, very simple solution of letting the air out of the tires and thereby reducing the height of that truck. Now we consider the original problem given to us by the customer as a suggestion and not as a final statement. Okay, and it's a 5-phase approach which people typically follow. Empathize with the users, define their needs, problem, and what are your insights on the problem. And then you ideate or brainstorm by challenging assumptions and creating ideas for solutions. And you prototype and start create solutions, and you test out those solutions. So this is an approach that you follow. So a couple of other examples also I have. So there was this situation where OralB wanted to make a new electric toothbrush. Okay, and when OralB went about this problem statement, what they thought was, okay, we'll have a music player in that toothbrush, and we'll have advanced data tracking features. What kind of features? Like how is the user brushing every tooth? What is the force that he is applying on every tooth? What is the direction in which he is brushing the teeth, and so on? Okay, and how sensitive are the gums? So OralB thought, they will have features or hardware to measure these parameters, so that people will. If people know about these parameters, they'll be able to make a healthy decision and so on. Okay, so that is what we think the customer needs. Typically, this is how we approach problems. Okay, but so OralB outsourced this designing to a different company, and what they recommended was you have a USB charging in the electric toothbrush, and then you make the brush head easily replaceable. So the electric toothbrush, if you see, there is a brush head and then there is a handle. So that brush head should be easily replaceable for the customer. So these points they identified via user surveys and focus groups and feedback. And this is what the customer really needs. And so we think the customer needs something, but in reality the customer needs something else. Okay. So this gap we can bridge only when we put ourselves in the shoes of the customer and look at the problem from their perspective, and then understand how best we can go about solving that problem. So this is one example, and there was this another example that I came across which I found interesting. There is this company in the US called Pillpack. Okay, this company doesn't do anything very complicated. Okay, all it does is when people have a lot of medication to take, they will just get all that medication from the pharmacy, and they will organize or sort all this medication into small packets as per the schedule during which that medication has to be taken. So for example, if you see here, they say 8 a.m. Wednesday, there is this aspirin and some glipizide, lisinopril, so like this. So on a particular day at a particular time, what are the pills that you have to take? All of them will be put in a particular packet. So like this, they will pack the pills as per the schedule, and then they will store those packets in different types of containers. And they will sell this as a solution or a service. So this is what they do. Okay. See, what is the customer need that they are solving here? Taking medicines is something that all customers do as per all patients do as per their needs. Okay. What Pillpack did was, how can we do this in such a way that it is very convenient to customers, and especially patients who are suffering from certain comorbidities or certain other lifestyle diseases. They will be needing to take a lot of medicines on a regular basis, and it is very, very imperative for them to have those store those medicines in a very organized manner, so that they don't make any mistakes while taking those medicines or taking those dosages, and they take the right medicines at the right time. And this is a very, very simple way, but also an innovative way to do this. So that's how Pillpack was able to leverage design thinking to make it easier for customers. And IBM has also implemented this design thinking philosophy in its project management practice. And these are the benefits that it has obtained. Reducing time to gather and align on requirements. So they reduced this time by 75%, and reduced development and testing costs by 33%, defect reduction by 50%. So how do you get these benefits? Because, for example, if you see defect reduction, you're already putting yourself into the shoes of the customer and looking at it from their perspective, right? So when you develop the final solution and go to them, it will be more or less exactly what they wanted. Right, so there is little chance for you to go back and do heavy amount of rework just because you didn't give something according to the client's expectations. Okay. And faster time to market, 2 times they were able to bring the product onto the market quicker. And portfolio management, portfolio as in project portfolio, they were able to identify projects which would give them more profit for a significantly lower amount of risk. So these are all benefits that companies typically reap when they follow the design thinking process. So yeah, this is what I had for today.